a glycoprotein called GCMAF, and very good brand was made by Cambridge scientists, and it was marketed out of the Channel Islands on Guernsey for a number of years. And as it got closer and closer to the COVID epic, to the COVID time, the authorities came down. Not a single customer or patient complained. It's just injections with a diabetic gauged needle 2 times a week. They had 90% success rate with breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer. Probably right now, if Scott Adams had is it the Dilbert guy, if he has prostate cancer and if he had access to GCMAF, he probably would live beyond the summer. They took people who were dying, who had stage 4 liver cancer, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and they kept living. And anyway, the people who complained against him were the pharmaceutical industry, and they filed a complaint. The State Pharmacist Board in France and in the UK, I forget which branch of the authorities, came down on him. And the head of the company, who is also our chairman of the board for National Health Federation, he was put in prison 5 months in the UK, 19 months in France for the crime of having helped 11,500 people with their cases, with their illnesses, because it was good for things other than just cancer. And so you can't really find good GCMAP now for that very reason. This person, Cassia, who said you might become suicidal real quick, that's really true, because David Noakes, who went to prison for all of this, he still hasn't recovered from the trauma of it. So it was a real tragedy, and a tragedy for people who could have used it, who could be living now if they'd had access to this product. And this is just one product, let alone the ivermectin and mebendazole that you can take now for cancer. But God forbid that I get into that, because then they'll snatch that off the marketplace.
Scott, you brought up not only a great point there, but actually something I could do a million routes with you on this conversation, or a million different routes with you on this conversation. But I wanted to go back to one other thing, because I think this is where, and our audience is obviously more open to this. As you can see, we didn't even ask for comments or questions yet, and they're already agreeing and bringing their own 2 cents. So thank you for commenting. But I think what happens is, you brought up the psychopath and sociopath thing, and that's something that people might loosely use sometimes, but I know better in this case to know that you actually meant that quite literally. And the reason I know that you meant that literally is because anyone that follows the podcast knows that I'm a fairly eccentric character and I have a million different interests outside of this in health. And one of the things that I study is abnormal psych and evolutionary psychology, a lot of Dr. David Buss's work. And what people do not realize is that about 1 to 3% of males qualify for antisocial personality disorder. Now, that does not mean all of them will get diagnosed with that. It means that we know for a fact that 1 to 3% of males qualify for this. A very small set of women qualify for this, but women can also be narcissists. Men can also be narcissists. If we want to count both of those in, you're talking about a pretty notable portion of the population of males specifically end up as either antisocial or narcissistic. People think antisocial means, oh, I don't like talking to people and I'm not going to go out of the house. That's not what that means. This is the spectrum that psychopathy and sociopathy fall under. And Scott was 100% correct in saying that these people have a propensity to rise to power. It's literally one of the traits, is that they want to get more power. They want to have that. That doesn't mean that everyone that's had a powerful position ever is the worst human being to ever live. That's not what we're saying. But I think what happens is, some of the individuals that would look at a podcast like this, Scott, and be like, oh my gosh, what are these two nut jobs talking about? They're like conspiracy theorists. The irony is, those people that are saying that, I can actually admit, are probably great people, generally speaking, with a lot of compassion, and they cannot comprehend the level of, I will say it, evil that exists in certain human beings, the lack of empathy, the lack of care or regard for other human beings' rights. So they look at us as the nutty ones, when, as flawed as we probably both are, I know I am, we're not psychopaths out there completely disregarding people's rights. And so they trust the people that the TV shows them because they spoke eloquently and they thought, oh, they must be a good person. Otherwise, they could have never been in this powerful
Mm.
position. It could not
Mhm.
be further from the truth. That is not a
Right.
qualification to go and get that position.
That's right. I agree. The only thing I would challenge on what you said is I
Sure.
think there are equal amounts of psychopathy and narcissism in men and women. It's just women hide it better. The women
Could be true.
psychopaths and the women narcissists are more subtle in how they express it. The men will be more overt about it. It'll be more obvious. Like dominant narcissists are typically male because they show it, they display it, they don't try to hide. They try to hide it, but they don't really hide it. The women narcissists, who are usually like vulnerable narcissists, they're better at hiding it and playing the victim and that sort of thing and sucking people in. But so I would say they're equal in both men and women. They're just displayed a little bit differently, and women are more successful at hiding it.
That could definitely be true because we're actually very bad at diagnosing certain things. And high functioning, if you will, autism, for example, we know that we don't accurately diagnose women. So obviously, one of the things that a psychopath wants to do is hide the fact that they are one. So if you're out there worrying about being a psychopath and you're telling your friends and family that you think you are one, most likely, I'm not a doctor,
Mhm.
but most likely that's not the case. They're usually going to want to hide that fact that they don't have empathy. And that very well could be true. And I'm a little more scared of a female psychopath than I am a male one. They have different strengths to them. Either
Yeah,
way,
they're harder to spot.
yes. I'm not trying to make that the main topic of this part of the show necessarily, but I am spotlighting this because I'm so tired of some of the best people that I see out there actually fighting this getting labeled as loony or conspiracy theorists because these people that, again, speak very well, but actually don't give a crap about you or me at all. The only thing
Mhm.
they care about is their image and more power. That is the sole focus of every single day, and they will undermine the rights of you and me to get there. Those are the people that are sometimes very successful in convincing others that they're out there fighting for them. And then yet people like us, when we talk about stuff like this, it's looked at as crazy. But even with what we're saying today, some of these things are objective. I didn't make up the fact that Monsanto has done what they've done.